Good afternoon, basketball fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags here in season 4, episode 22. And today, here we are joined by Jim Corrigan. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rags. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, and definitely, I know before we started taping here. I know that we definitely have some common ground here with your assistant assignments. But let's start at the beginning. I mean, what was it? What was it like here? Did you grow up around all sports, or was it mainly just basketball?
Well, I'm from Baltimore originally, and I was born into a family of lacrosse people.
Oh, okay.
So my extended family, they're all involved in lacrosse in some way, shape, or form. But we moved away and ended up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina when I was 9 years old,
Okay.
and lived there until I came to uh, William and Mary.
Right.
So grew up in the heart of Tobacco Road. So it was kind of natural to play basketball. And that ended up, I played all the sports as a kid, but then that's the one I gravitated to by the time I was in eighth or ninth grade.
Yeah, and I see, when college came, got opportunity here to be a student athlete there at Duke and be part of the Blue Devil basketball program. And with me being always liking broadcasting, I mean, Jim Sparkle here with CBS Sports, and even the G Man, a good NBA career, but he also has done some broadcasting in college basketball. But there's a couple of your teammates while you're at Duke.
Yeah, yeah, they were great players and great guys. And then Gene Banks was also an incredible player during the time I was there. Um, it's funny I was on the last team before Mike Krzyzewski got to Duke. Played for Bill Foster, and nowadays people think there wasn't even basketball at Duke before. We were actually pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, I see. I mean, 2 ACC tournament champions, 3 NCAA tournaments, and actually in '78, not only did you guys make it to the Final Four, but lost to Kentucky there in the championship game.
Yeah, it was a tremendous program, and then Coach Foster decided to leave, and Coach K came in, and the rest they say is history.
Right. Yeah, and so then after Duke, I saw that you got into high school coaching. So what was the opportunity here to go into college coaching?
Well, I spent 7 years on the high school level. The first two were at Northern Durham with Kevin Billerman. Kevin was a Duke player who had gone overseas, came back, and was working at Northern Durham right there in Durham. Okay. So after I graduated, he talked me into helping him out, and then I kind of got the bug.
Right.
So from there, I moved to Bishop McGuinness in Winston-Salem, and really enjoyed it. And after 5 years there, I ended up going to William and Mary with Chuck Swenson when he got the job. So that's kind of how it happened. My Duke connection, kind of made that happen.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, William and Mary, my brother and sister both went there. My brother, Mike Ragsdale, pitched, and, there for Tribe baseball. But, Tribe basketball, I mean, you want to talk about student athlete. I mean, just with the tradition of the College of William and Mary, but definitely remember when UVA came down, and that was exciting seeing William and Mary Hall packed, and William and Mary lost in overtime, but at least to force UVA there into overtime.
Yeah, it's not very often that a school like William and Mary gets a team like Virginia to come there. So it was a big deal, and our kids rose to the occasion on that particular night. We played really well and hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to send it into overtime. Just couldn't quite get over the hump, though. They walked away with a hard-fought win, and it happens that way sometimes.
Right, and then the opportunity here to go 64 East and be part of Monarch basketball, and it was definitely a long tenure there for you. But you definitely started out here in the 94-95 season with Jeff Capel coming on board, right?
Exactly right. Yes, that was my first year there. I had the opportunity to step into a really, really good team. I mean, the team that Oliver Purnell had assembled was outstanding. Unfortunately, Odell blew his knee out, tore his ACL in the third or fourth game of the year. But we came together as the year went on. We won the league, won the tournament, went to the NCAA, and just had a tremendous win over Villanova. Triple overtime.
Yeah.
You can still catch it on ESPN Classics every now and then. But it was a heck of a team, heck of a season. Had the opportunity to coach Mike Jones, who's now the head coach at Old Dominion, which just is a testament to the fact that I'm old. But looking forward to seeing how well he does at ODU. He's going to be great, I think, and everybody's very excited about it.
Yeah, well, that is interesting, and about when ODU played Villanova, because it was only CBS. There wasn't technology like there is today, and then much less with the CBS and Turner contract. But there in March of '95, with being in a military family, I lived out in California. So I told Mike and Odell when I had them on a couple weeks ago, I said, I actually didn't get the game on TV until like the first overtime, because with living in California, you only got what game was close to you. And I had to tell all my sister's friends, because I had already graduated from Western Branch. I said, you guys pay attention to the Monarchs. They're gonna be a sleeper here. And what a win there against Kerry Kittles and Villanova there, 3 overtimes.
Yeah, they nobody really gave us a chance. We looked at their team, and Kittles is a great player, and Petey Sessoms was the player of the year in our league, but he's also the defensive player of the year, and he could really do a great job on guys. But we kind of said, Kerry Kittles is great. He's going to do what he's going to do, and we're not going to be able to stop him. They had their second leading scorer was a guy named Eric Ebers, who was a 6'8" shooter, and we felt like we could handle him, so we put Petey on him.
Okay.
And Petey did a great job on him, and I think he had 2 points in the game or something like that, and it enabled us to be right there with them. By that point in the season, David Harvey had really come along and had fit into his role extremely well. And, he was good for like 9 points and 9 rebounds every game. And he just banged against their big guys. And, David was, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 inches shorter than the guys they had, but he banged with them and he knocked them around. And, we used to joke that Jason Lawson, every time he got the ball, he looked over his shoulder for trying to find out where David was, because he was expecting something to happen. And so he played a great game. And then, everybody did.
Right.
And everybody contributed to that win. And, Mike and Petey did their usual thing where they scored and were great leaders. And it was just, it seemed like the game was never going to end. It kept going.
Right.
3 overtimes. I think we got done at like midnight or something.
Right.
But it was a whale of a win, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah, and the other thing is 97, Monarchs go back to the NCAA, and so what a run there for Monarch basketball there from the mid to the late 90s.
Yeah. There we ran into New Mexico, who was a very good team, and it was a close game, but we came up a little short in that one. But we had and then we went to the NIT another year,
right,
during that stretch. So it was a lot of fun, but it is what it is in terms of the tough competition, and you better be ready to play. Like when we beat Villanova, we had to turn around, and in less than 48 hours, we had to play Tulsa.
Right.
and we played really well for about 35 minutes, and then we just kind of ran out of gas. The three overtimes caught up to us, and they ended up beating us. But I think had we played a normal, not played three overtimes, we might have been able to win that game too. I don't know. But
Right.
you got to be ready every every game in that tournament, man. It's unbelievably competitive.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've lived here since '87, except for those 2 years, 95 and '96. There in California, but one thing that has been consistent here in our area, and with the tradition of Monarch and Lady Monarch basketball. I mean, whether for the men, at Scope, then Fieldhouse, then to the Ted, what's Chartway Arena now, and the Lady Monarchs, they're from the Fieldhouse to the Ted and Chartway Arena. I mean, fans definitely support Monarch basketball.
Yeah, there's no question we've got a tremendous fan base, and always have. That's something that was there long before I arrived, and it has been there ever since. I mean, they are they are very passionate about their Monarchs. That's for sure.
Right? And then also, when Jeff Capel, he moved on, and you were a holdover there when Blaine Blaine came on in the opening of Chartway Arena. I mean, it was like another spark here of success here as the Monarch basketball program went to the NCAA's 05, 07, 10, and 11, and then the NIT Final Four there in 06, and nothing like playing in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, we had a great 8-year run where we averaged about 25 wins a season and went to postseason play every year. Won the first ever CIT tournament.
Right.
Had to go to Bradley to win that. Went to an NIT Final Four and 4 NCAA tournaments. Beat Villanova one year. You talk about the luck of the draw. 2 of those 4 years, we had to play Butler in the first round of the tournament.
Right.
And the last year we played them, they beat us by 2 on a tip in.
Right.
And kind of broke our hearts, but they went all the way to the championship game of the Final Four that year, and we felt like if we could get past them, we had the ability to make a run with that team. But unfortunately, we didn't get past them. So,
right, and that's the thing here with the NCAA's, and I drove up to DC there in 2011. The 8-9 game. I mean, and Florida Atlantic, I know that they played a 16 seed in the second round, but those 8-9 games there in the first round, whoever wins that, and as Butler showed there in 2011, I think they took down Pitt, but depending on where the draw is, you get by that first game, and then just the momentum, could carry you.
yeah, it's probably one of the tougher games though in the first round when you look at the seeding and all that. And that particular year, we were a little baffled. We were a 9 seed, and earlier that year down in the Virgin Islands, we had won that tournament and beat Xavier in the finals, and we beat them. We beat them soundly. We led start to finish. We ended up winning by 9, and they were a 6 seed that year. So we really didn't understand. How are we a 9 if they're a 6, and how are they a 6 if we're a 9? It was just one of those things that was kind of baffling. But you don't have can't negotiate it. You just got to show up and play. And we played. It wasn't a beautiful game. Neither team shot particularly well. It was a defensive battle, and they just made that one play at the buzzer that won the game. And we felt like, had we been able to get into overtime with them, both of their post players had 4 fouls.
Right.
If we could get into overtime, we thought we had a real advantage. But they made the tip in, and the rest is history again.
But 2011, for the CAA to get 3 teams, then the year that George Mason, went to the Final Four, and then 2011 VCU goes to the Final Four. But and I know the CAA is different, and I know a lot of teams move around here the last few years, but I mean, back then, I mean, the CAA was very good competitive basketball.
Yeah, it really was. It was a tremendous league, and in some respects, it's a shame that it had to break up the way it did. But yeah, there were some really good things happening, and had those schools stayed together, I think it would have continued to be a very, very good league in basketball. I mean, the rivalry that we had with VCU during that time was, I was part of the Duke Carolina rivalry. The only difference between the two was Dick Vitale was at one screaming and yelling and going crazy, and wasn't at the other one. That's the only difference. It was a very intense, hard fought game every time he played. It was a lot of fun. The fans were into it. I mean, it was just really an exceptional rivalry.
Yeah, and with working for the government, I've had some meetings in downtown Richmond, and it's kind of a shame that how I don't even think the Richmond Coliseum hosts any postseason tournaments nowadays, if anything at all. I mean, Elizabeth and I, we would drive, 64 West, and if you guys played early, just commute back and forth, and then on that championship Monday, the place would be packed. You know.
Yeah, a lot of the schools didn't like the fact that it was in Richmond because they thought one time it gave University of Richmond
Right.
advantage and VCU advantage, but it was the best thing for it because of that very reason. You had great crowds, you had a great atmosphere, and it was fun to play in that atmosphere, even if the crowd was a little bit one-sided. But we always had a great crew come up, and our fans held their own whenever we played VCU.
Right.
So they did a great job. But it was, that was one of the things that made it what it was, is the fact that there were one or two schools that were right in that city that, supported it tremendously.
Right. Right. And then, getting during your coaching career, before you left Old Dominion, ended up being an assistant a few years there on the Lady Monarch side.
Yes, I did. I had four seasons there. Felt very fortunate to be able to stay under the circumstances. So it worked out well. Loved working with those kids. They're very competitive, very hardworking. Was able to work with Jenny Sims, and she developed into a first team all conference player of the year, and ultimately was drafted and is still playing right now. So that was a fun experience.
Right. And then, moved on to going back to Duke and being part of the Lady Blue Devils there for a few years.
Yeah, that was neat to be back, where I went to school and see things up close and personal. Had some really good players there. The first year we went to the Sweet 16. Had some great kids, and a couple of them are in the WNBA right now. So that was also really neat, and enjoyed it very, very much.
Yes, and then I know when I connected with you there on Twitter, you also had a time where you were special assistant there with the Lady Hokies and Coach Brooks. I mean, what I remember when he led the JMU women's program, and then what he did at Virginia Tech, and so just talk about being around the Lady Hokies basketball program as they improve there in the ACC.
Yeah, Kenny. I have known Kenny since I was at William and Mary. He was like a senior my first year at William and Mary, and then he became a GA under Lefty Drizel. So we go back a long, long way in terms of knowing each other. And he called me up one day. He had lost a coach, and they were into the season. It was December, and he called me up and said, just felt like he needed another set of eyes and hands around the program, and would I be interested? And I, jumped at it.
Right.
Little did I know we'd be going to the Final Four, but it ended up being a great experience. And watching how he runs his program was really neat, and how how hands-on he is with the players and their individual development, and the things that he does that have turned like Liz Kitley into such a great player. Georgia Amore, both of them were not amongst the highest rated recruits coming out of high school, but they turned into great, great players. And that's a tribute to what he does with them himself, and the way he runs the program, and the people that he had working with him was great staff, great people all around. So that was just a neat experience to see the Final Four from that side of things. Was really an amazing experience. And I feel very fortunate to have been through it. And now that Kenny's at Kentucky, I'm sure they're going to be very dangerous very quickly.
Right. Yeah, and it was something. I mean, I know with these colleges and alumni all throughout the country, but it was definitely awesome to see on TV that here Virginia Tech, being in Seattle, being in the West region, and nothing like "Let's Go Hokies" chant there in the Great Northwest when Virginia Tech won the West region and getting ready to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, the fan base traveled really well that year. It was very impressive. And the other thing that was impressive is we had, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 16,000 people attend those games in that region. And it was, Ohio State, Tennessee, us, and I think UConn.
Wow.
All the teams were from the Midwest and the East, but they had great crowds at those games. That was very impressive to see.
Yeah, and and when you were at William and Mary, you bring up Lefty Driesell, there when he was leading James Madison, and I didn't know it until later on, but just I remember when he was coaching Maryland there when I first started following college basketball, and sad to see him go here recently, but he got his start right here in Norfolk with being a Granby alum.
That's right. That's right. And coached high school briefly, and then went to Davidson, ended up at Davidson, and then from there to Maryland. And he was the inventor back when Midnight Madness was a thing. Right. Lefty's the guy that invented it. He was the first one to say, okay, if October 15th is the first day we can practice, we're going to practice at midnight on the 14th.
Right.
And open it up to the public. And it obviously blew up into something really big for a lot of schools, but he was the guy, he came up with that.
Yeah.
And as we found out when he was at JMU and we were at ODU, he's a relentless recruiter.
Right.
He made life very interesting a few times.
Right.
Efforts.
Right. And, and the other thing, when Elizabeth and I started getting season tickets there for Old Dominion basketball there in 03, 04, and and so on, and we would bring our nephews. My nephew that's now he's going to be 28 here in the summertime, but when he would come to the games with us, he liked Isaiah Hunter, and just Isaiah Hunter, Brandon Johnson, Drew Williamson, who's making a name for himself coaching, and then Dahi and Versilius. I mean, just there in 03, 04, just what great, not only great basketball players, but, what great people to root for, and did anything that my nephews, want to autograph, poster, basketball. It's just a great time here to follow the Monarch teams at that time.
Yeah, one of the things that made it really special was the fact that we had great kids. They're good people, they're good players. You didn't have to worry about them when they left practice. You weren't going, you didn't worry about them because you knew they were there for the right reasons. And, that obviously makes the job a lot more enjoyable when you have that kind of situation. Right. So we felt very fortunate, and we worked hard to recruit those kind of kids. Right. That's something that was important to us. Back then things were very different than they are in today's college basketball environment. There was no portal. There was no, you can transfer at any time. play right away, that kind of thing. So kids had a tendency to work through things more than they seem to do now. Now they hit a bump in the road and they have a tendency to, want to take off.
Right.
But no, we didn't have those issues because of the rules were different, but we also worked very hard to bring those kind of people in.
Right. And then with Drew, the opportunity that he's had at Florida Atlantic and the success that Florida Atlantic has had recently, then Florida Atlantic's head coach goes to Michigan. And usually in the coaching business, that's what usually happens, right? Somebody was like, Michigan, why is Drew going to Michigan? But hey, when a former head coach from Florida Atlantic goes to Michigan, that's a great opportunity there for Drew.
Absolutely, and they earned it. They earned it, and it's great to see him in that position, and it bodes well for his career. The only way you don't make that move is if you end up getting a head job at the place you were coming from. So otherwise, that's an easy decision. Michigan's a great program and a great league, and it's going to expose him to some things that he wouldn't have gotten at Florida Atlantic in terms of his career. So it'll be fun to watch him as his career progresses.
Yes, and to wrap it up, I know when I had Odell on by himself, and then when him and Mike, came on recently, I definitely remember Petey Sessoms as high school basketball athlete, over here at Craddock. But they just talked about his career there at Old Dominion. So it's definitely great to see, Mike Jones, ODU alum, second alum to lead the program, and then Odell here being one of his assistants.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be cool to watch. I think they'll be very successful. Mike coached at DeMatha for a long time, and he coached some great players who are now in the NBA. So he's coached high-level players before. That won't be new. He's managed a staff before, and he spent the last few years in the college game as an assistant, recruiting and coaching and all that. So I think they're going to do great. I think it's great that they're back. I thought it was a great pull for him to get Odell to come back. I never saw that one coming.
Right.
But it'll be great to see those guys together and see how they do and where they take this program.
Right. And Jim, appreciate your time. And when I ran into you last week, how was it there with, being there at the PIT and just enjoying it as a volunteer and enjoying the game of basketball right here with the tradition of the PIT?
Well, it was a lot of fun. We finished 2-1. We lost our first game and then won the next two, finished 5th place. Okay. One of the kids on our team made the all-tournament team.
Oh, nice.
And again, we had good kids on the team and they played really hard. And, it was a lot of fun. It was great to be around. And, it was my second time doing it. Okay. But the first time we were 0-3. So this was a much different experience in a good way, But no, it's a neat tournament, and seeing those kids up close. A couple of them are going to end up on rosters next year. There's no question. Maybe more than a couple. I don't know, but there's some very talented players there, very skilled players. The kids on our particular team did a great job of, you get a 45-minute practice.
Oh, okay.
The day of your first game.
Oh, wow.
So you can't do too much because you're going to play later that night.
Right.
But our guys really came together over the course of the 3 games and kind of became a team. By the third day, we were a team, and they were unselfish. They shared the ball. They played hard. They defended. They rebounded. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I also had the opportunity to work with AJ Guyton, who was an All-American at Indiana.
Okay.
A really great guy and a he's going to be very successful, in his coaching career in the future. And then the other guy on our staff was Mike Head, who was a longtime high school coach in this area.
Okay.
And has been around a long, long time. So it was great to be with those guys and work with those guys and to be a part of the team that we had. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, I know Chris Furman, Charles Thomas, and so some other area high school coaches were involved, and then with Cynthia Cooper and other WNBA, players also part of the coaching staffs.
Yeah, it was neat to meet everybody and get to visit with them a little bit, and it'll be fun to watch those people as their careers progress, and both players and coaches. As their careers move forward. So
yeah. Well, hey Jim, I appreciate your time for talking about your career and the basketball programs that you were a part of. And Elizabeth and I will see you around town. Thanks again.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Rags. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed it very much, man. Take care.
All right. So that's Jim Corrigan here on today's episode.